Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
It's the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Prograis.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 387 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by former heavyweight world title challenger, the main man, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week, my man?
I'm doing good, Joe. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie. We're going to dive straight into the review part of the show. As always, we're going to start here in Paris, in France, over here at the Zénith de Paris. I was going to say friend of the show. No, not friend of the show. Hasn't been on before, but fellow Brit. That's me speaking there. Lauren Price of Wales, now 3-0, a unanimous decision over 8 2-minute rounds there at welterweight against Naomi Manez, who's now 6-2. I think she was Canadian. Lauren Price, I mean, it was expected really to win on points. She did so, like I say, goes 8 rounds, I believe, for the first time there. Only 3 fights in, the Olympic gold medalist. I think there's big things for her yet to come. So yeah, good for her there to get some experience on the road as a pro. I'm sure she had a ton of experience on the road as an amateur. Elsewhere on the card, we had the undefeated Frenchman Farhad Saad. He was 8-0 with a draw. He got in there with Macaulay McGowan, who's 17-3 with 2 draws. Now it was a majority draw over 8 rounds there at super middleweight. Macaulay McGowan, by the way, was 11-1 to win the fight on points. I backed it very small. I did that because I thought, you know, Macaulay McGowan could win. I didn't really see anything on the Frenchman's record that made me think, oh wow, scary. I mean, he was 8-0 with no knockouts. He had that one draw, like I say, hadn't boxed anyone of note. I think McGowan had quite a decent bit of notice for the fight, and even though McGowan himself isn't fantastic, he is tough, but both guys were, you know, quite tough and weren't really punchers. So I always thought it was going to go the distance. It certainly did, but I thought McGowan could have nicked it, and he definitely did nick it, by the way. But I think there was a lot of poor scoring throughout the night, and we will get to that in the next couple of scorecards that we're going to read out. But yeah, it was a shame really, because they've protected Farhad Saad there. He's still undefeated, unbelievably, but McGowan certainly deserved the decision. A little bit late on in the fight, I think he started to tire. He got caught with a couple of decent looking shots, but I don't think he was going anywhere. But I think he did enough early on to rack up enough rounds to win it quite clearly, but obviously the judges saw different. Moving up the card again, I'm going to come to you, Eddie, for this one. It was Thomas Four, who was 21-4 with a draw. It was for the vacant EBU European light heavyweight title. He stepped in with the UK's undefeated Dan Aziz of Lewisham, now 19-0, a TKO in the 12th and final round. Action-packed fight, really. You know, I think Dan Aziz pretty much won every round, for me anyway. Maybe I'm seeing it slightly biased. The bits I did see, I think he outfought the Frenchman, and he was much smarter. You could see the IQ was much more in his favour. The Frenchman as well had absolutely no head movement at times, and every time he'd take a jab in the face or any other punch, he'd do that thing where his head moves like a metre backwards. Like, even if the punch doesn't land hard, it looks like it's landed hard because the jerk kind of backwards that his head did after every time he got touched on the whiskers. I think you know what I'm talking about. It doesn't look good in the eyes of the judges, Eddie. But anyway, a really good stoppage from the referee in the end. Even though it was the 12th and final round, you know, he was very close to, you know, not getting knocked out, going that late in the fight. But really, really, really good stoppage from the referee in the end. And yeah, you know, he was very shaky on his feet.
Yeah, excellent fight. Actually my first time, I think, watching that Aziz. He impressed. You know, there was
subtle defensive things, aside from how good his offense looked in the jab, and just the constant pressure, and not being deterred from the Frenchman actually being, friendly with the punches. He was throwing shots. He was trying to keep them off, but he was he just was determined. And you could also see that, like I said, the subtle defensive things he was doing. But he was catching certain shots, shoulder riding with certain shots, making a miss completely sometimes, and then coming back with counter shots. But I think the real MVP of the fight in that was his jab, because that sometimes, even if something else wasn't really, working as he would have wanted to work, that jab was always on point. Even like you said, Joe, when he would block certain shots, it looked like it would give him that jarring whiplash kind of, effect with the head jerk. And I don't know if he won every single round, but he definitely won the vast majority of it. And the stoppage in the end, I have to agree, it was definitely a pretty good stoppage. Even though it was the last round, the guy was, at some point, even if it was like a minute left, I'm not even sure how much time was on the clock, but even with a minute left, there's a lot of damage that can be done with somebody's defenses. And, sometimes the refs are a little more like, oh, well, the fight's almost over. I don't want to be too big of a part of the fight. I don't want to create this buzz of me being a ref that steps in too soon and all of that stuff. But I think it'd be better if you step in too soon rather than too late. And I think this ref was thinking that then. I think it was a good stoppage. Like I said, he was controlling the fight. He was pretty much going to win. Pretty much there wasn't really much that the Frenchman was going to be able to do. It didn't seem that he was going to be able to hurt Aziz enough to get him out of there with one shot. So it was a good job in the end by the ref. Good fight. Like you said, action-packed. I was really impressed with Dan Aziz. Being my first time seeing him, he left a pretty good impression on me.
Yeah, really happy for Dan Aziz, man. He's done things the old-fashioned way, going through the titles and stuff. I think he won a Southern area, obviously become British. Now he's moved on to European. So really happy for him. I think he's improving all the time. Really happy for him. Nice guy as well. Okay, moving on to the next card. It took place at the Echo Arena in Liverpool, Merseyside, United Kingdom. This one over here, let's start with the undercard. Campbell Hatton with a win now, 10-0, a points win there, over 6 rounds against I think he was, I don't want to say where he's from now because I've completely forgotten, but Michel Gonche. He's now 4-3 with a draw there, a win for Campbell Hatton. Akib Fiaz finally did get a knockout. It was in the 8th and final round. He's now 11-0 with 1 KO. He was able to stop Dean Dodge, who was down in the first round, by the way. Johnny Fisher as well moved to 8-0, a TKO in round 4 against Alfonso Damiani of Italy, who's now 6-3. He was quite a tough guy, to be honest with you, Damiani. Took a lot of big shots right on the chin. He didn't go down at all. It was the referee that jumped in after basically a few good punches landed. Not really it wasn't like he was on the ropes getting pummeled and, the referees jumped in. He just took a few really clean, massive shots to the head, like bang, 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 and after a couple of them, maybe 2 or 3 over about 10 seconds, the referee just thought, you know what, he's took too many clean shots right there, that's that. And it was always going to just go one way anyway. But yeah, I had Johnny Fisher to win within 4 rounds, so I was delighted there. I was getting a bit worried when it was in round 4. I was jumping for joy at that stoppage actually, but obviously let's be real, that aside, it wasn't the best stoppage ever, but he was really getting on top. And I don't like to see, as we alluded to earlier, or as you alluded to earlier, Eddie, I don't like to see obviously referees stopping it too late. I prefer them to stop it too early than too late, but anyways, it is what it is. Win there for Johnny Fisher. He moves on. Bosch, it's now 8-0 for him, 7 KOs. Peter McGraw on the card as well, now 7-0, a unanimous decision for him over 10 rounds against Nicholas Botelli, who's now 14-8. I thought McGraw would probably get him out of there actually. It looked that way after a few of the early rounds. Seemed like, he was up in the pressure and getting to Botelli, but no, good good 10 rounds banked there for Peter McGrath. Still a really good prospect, I think, and really excited for his development and his future as well as a pro. This one was a bit unexpected. Rhiannon Dixon, who's now 8-0. She had no knockouts to her name. She got in with the undefeated Vicky Wilkinson, who was 5-0 with a draw. No knockouts to her name. So both ladies hadn't knocked anyone out. And Rhiannon Dixon did end up costing me a little bit of change, actually, when she managed to TKO Vicky Wilkinson in round 6. Wilkinson down twice in that 6th round from body shots. Really unexpected, like I say. I cannot believe that Dixon chose that night there to get a knockout, and it was probably against one of the best opponents she'd been in with, really. It was for the vacant Commonwealth lightweight title as well, so that is a title that Rhiannon Dixon now holds. Elsewhere on the card, we had Diego Pacheco invade the UK from Mexico. He's the latest Mexican to come over here and beat and stop a UK fighter. He's now 18-0. Jack Cullen on the receiving end, now 21-4 with a draw. Cullen down twice in round 4. Good fight while it lasted, to be honest with you. It was for the vacant WBO International Super Middleweight title. Jack Cullen is such a tough guy. Always comes to give it a good go. Doesn't particularly do anything fantastically well. Just does the basics really well. Not much of a banger at all. But so much heart, so much grit, so much toughness. He's upset the apple cart, like I said, in the past more than once. And it's a tough night's work, really, for a lot of guys over here. But yeah, I mean, Diego Pacheco was just too good. I think he might have gave away the first 1 or 2 rounds because Cullen was on that jab and, boxing really well to a smart game plan. But then, like I say, Diego Pacheco started to, get through that guard of Jack Cullen, and it wasn't long then till the punches started to rain in, and obviously he's got those undeniable heavy hands, and he was able to just, like I say, target the body of Cullen, and Cullen's been hurt to the body before, and that's what happened again here. Pacheco with devastating shots really to Cullen's body, and then Cullen went down, like I say, got back up, and pretty much, boxed on, and the referee obviously, allowed the fight to continue, and that's when Diego Pacheco went running in right over the other side of the ring for Cullen. Cullen was just protecting his body completely because he knew he couldn't take another shot downstairs. He left himself open upstairs, and Pacheco took full advantage. Crack, and it was quite a heavy, brutal knock out in the end for young Diego Pacheco. It was quite a bad one. Sad for Jack Cullen because, like I say, I think he deserves some kind of big fight or some kind of fight where he's kind of put in there to win. He deserves, maybe to go back a little bit, maybe fight for a British title or something like that. I think he's certainly good enough, but he's just been, it's been like, what's the word, like kamikaze management, I think, he's just, the way he's been moved, it's just been risky fight after risky fight. They haven't given him any time to build. It's a shame. I actually think he could beat a lot of guys, but he's an away fighter through and through, and it's just a bit of a shame. He kind of reminds me of a few other guys as well that are on that same kind of page as him, like who springs to mind? Like James Metcalf, like who's that other guy? Fought Ammo Williams. Oh God, Brit that fought Ammo Williams, went the distance with him. Really tough. Kieran Conway. He's another one. Like really tough guys, good fighters, but for whatever reason they're like not with a good promoter or whatever, and they're just always in the away corner. Always in with a guy expected to beat them, and sometimes they pull off an upset, sometimes they don't. So. Yeah, I feel for Jack Cullen, but a great win nonetheless for Pacheco, and a lot of people think he's going to go all the way. We shall see. And it wasn't the main event, but it was on the undercard. Robbie Davies Jr., friend of the show, heartbreak for him. He's now 23-4. He was down in round 2 and then once in round 3. And it was just horrific, actually. He was in there with Dara Foley, who was a late replacement for Liam Parrow. Foley now 22-4 with a draw. A massive upset, really, for Foley. But basically what happened is I missed the first round. The second round, when Davies did get put down, I think he was down quite heavy, if I'm not mistaken. Got back up, went back to his corner, but then that knockdown in the third and final round, basically, Robbie Davies walked into a shot. It was like, I don't think it was a jab. I can't remember now what the shot was, but he walked into a shot, and it put him, like, he walked into this shot that put him, like, on his back foot, you know, like he walked into a shot and it immediately made him, like, forced him to take a step back automatically. And when he took that step back, his ankle gave way, and it was disgusting. Like, literally, his ankle was on the canvas and his foot was to the side. It was like one of the worst ankle injuries I've seen in boxing that I can remember. It was so horrific, and of course he couldn't carry on at all. He was on the ground. God knows how he got himself back up, and everyone initially thought, oh, he's been put down by a shot that didn't really look like much, because like I say, it wasn't really a powerful shot. It just put him on his back foot, and like I say, his foot gave way. I think it was his front foot that gave way as well. It was all a bit weird, but when we saw the replay, I mean, the crowd they went, oh, it was terrible. He got back up and he was pointing at his ankles, saying, like, look, my ankles, and obviously the towel come in, and then they had to bring the stool to him and sit him on it, and he was devastated, went to the hospital. I think he's already had an operation on it, and I think I'm saying that like that's some breaking news. I think it happened the same night they operated on his ankle. It was terrible. It really was. So all the best to him. Hopefully he can make a speedy recovery. However, I think it's probably nearing the end of the road now for Robbie Davies Jr. Haven't been very impressed with him in recent years, and this is like really, they say the cherry on top of the cake. This is like the nail in the coffin, I think, for him, sadly. But all the best to him, like I say, friend of the show. And moving out now to the final card to mention. We're going to go to this one first, actually. There's two. So one to mention here, Hector Tanahara, friend of the show, now 21-1 with a draw. A unanimous decision win for him over 6 rounds against John Arellano. That one was at the Al Zafar Shrine in San Antonio, Texas. But the main card, really, of the weekend at the Kudos Bank Arena in Sydney Olympic Park, New South Wales, Australia. Over here we saw Tim Tszyu, now 22-0, a TKO in round 9 against Tony Harrison, now 29-4 with a draw. It was for the WBO Interim World Super Welterweight title. I'm going to come to you in a second, Eddie, but Tim Tszyu, just too good. I mean, I thought it was close to a 50-50 fight going in. I really did. I know obviously Tszyu was the big favourite, but Harrison, I mean, I said it, I said it's kind of like last chance saloon for him to pick up a title again. And I mean, I feel like I almost spoke those words into existence, because he was so unimpressive, to the point where I don't think he can come back from this. I think that is the end of the road for him, sadly. I like the guy, but I mean, it was just, it was terrible. I mean, obviously, Tszyu, as the fight went on, got stronger and stronger and stronger. At one point, it looked like he may go the distance, and not get him out. But when he got him out, and it was just the speed and power of Tszyu. It's real now, I think. And like I had highlighted, I wasn't really too impressed with Harrison's recent run. You've got to go back, quite a few years, really, for his last really good win. And I think we said it was like a majority or split decision win against Ishe Smith, and obviously had the controversial win over Charlo and lost the next one by stoppage. And it's just not been a great run. And like I say, he's not too old, but I think that's it really for him. Sorry that I didn't go in on that too scientifically, Eddie. I probably leave that for you to go in on. But I think Tszyu has proven himself now that he's definitely much more than just his father's son. The surname is irrelevant, and this guy can seriously fight. And he made an example out of Tony Harrison, who is a respected, proven, good fighter, and not many people do that to him.
That's a fact. I mean, it was an impressive performance. I didn't realize the explosive speed he had, as well, along with the power that was coming behind it. You could see the difference with the punches that
Zoo was throwing versus the punches, obviously, that Tony was throwing. And it wasn't unlike any of the other performances that Tony had. He was just much more, I think, effective with his offense. Is in this time he wasn't really as effective. I think Zoo early, like you could see him, coming with the shoulder roll return right hand and uppercuts and things like that. And his punches just look so much more explosive and so much more authoritative. And he just was assuming control right off the bat. And it was like, Tony, like I said, there was some times when he tried to get back. He tried to throw some jabs, some nice slick shots, some good punches, and at different times. But it just wasn't going to be enough there. Zoo's too good at this point. You know what I mean? And maybe it's Tony's a little older. He's been through the ringer a little bit. Like you said, his last stretch of fights haven't been the greatest. You know what I mean? Even if you're talking about including, the Charlo rematch. But, I don't know if I would say he's done. I just think this dude is good. You know what I mean? I think he's a lot better than maybe he was getting credit for before. It's like, oh, he's Costa's son. And quite honestly, he looks a lot like him too. Just to be, he's a bigger version, but he looks a lot like him. And he performed really, really well. I think there's no question that he's going to be one of the best guys in the division. I'm not sure about the fight with Charlo. Different styles, you know what I mean? Say different strokes for different folks. So it could be a different kind of situation. We don't know what would happen in that fight. However, he's definitely going to be a formidable opponent for anyone at the 154 to 160 pound divisions in the years to come. Hey, shit, he can go heavier, lighter, whatever he can do. He's just a capable fighter.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think if he can get Charlo to Australia, by the way, for that fight, I think he's got a huge chance. But I'm not, getting carried away with this victory here. Like I say, I think Harrison was a lot worse than I expected. Rather than Sue being so much better than I thought. That's kind of how I saw it. But yeah, I think Charlo's clearly still the number one man, of course. On the undercard as well, we should mention Sam Goodman has moved to 14-0. It was for the IBF Intercontinental and WBO Oriental Super-Bantamweight titles. A unanimous decision there against former world champion Ireland's very own TJ Doheny, now 23-4. Like I say, I'm not sure how close that fight was. I didn't watch it, but yeah, sad to see Doheny now losing to guys that he probably would have obliterated during that mini run that he had where he was, a very, very good fighter in the division. But anyway, that's it for the review part of the show. Just before we wrap up this part, the final thing for me to do is to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the former unified Super Bantamweight champion of the world. It is, of course, Mr. Brandon Figueroa. Brandon, welcome back on the show, my man.
Oh, yes, sir. It's always an honor to be here, and thank you for having me every time.
Hey, it's my pleasure every time, Brandon. So fantastic to have you back. We last spoke in June of last year, so it's been a little while. At the time, you were getting ready to fight Carlos Castro in your first fight up at Featherweight. You became the first man to stop Castro. I know it's a bit in the past now, but how did it feel to be in there in your first real fight at 126 without having to shed as much weight as usual?
Oh, man, it felt amazing. I mean, as you guys can tell by my performance, I felt really confident. My power was there. Everything, I just felt more like a complete fighter. And, it was a great fight. Carlos Castro came to fight. But I feel like I just got him early and hurt him to the body early. And I just felt like he just didn't have anything to beat me with. So I took the fight right to him, put the pressure like I always do, and I managed to get him out of there.
And obviously, your last fight just less than 2 weeks ago, that excellent fight against Mark Magsayo for the vacant interim WBC title. Walk me through the fight, Brandon. I was particularly surprised when you came out in the first 2 rounds and tried to box at range, predominantly in southpaw. I thought you were an imposter.
No, yes, of course. We have seen a lot of footage on Mark Magsayo, and we had seen that he's had a lot of trouble with lefties coming forward. And he's had trouble with soft fighters, lefty fighters, fighters that put pressure, and fighters that box. So technically, I mean, I had all the abilities to frustrate him and beat him. I just knew it was a time when and where, you know. That's why the first 2 rounds I boxed him a little bit, make him think that I was gonna box him, and then as soon as I saw an opportunity where I hurt him to the body, that's when I put the pressure as a lefty. And as you guys can tell, the game plan worked. You know, he was gassed out, I want to say, by round 6. But yeah, you know, as being such a versatile, unique fighter, I have a lot of abilities that, you know, I feel like I haven't really shown. And I feel like this fight I kind of showed a little bit, you know, a little bit of my ring IQ that, you know, I saw I saw that he had a lot of trouble with tall, lanky fighters, and especially inside fighting as well. So yeah, you know, I just boxed him a little bit, made him a little frustrated, and then once I saw an opportunity, I just put pressure on him.
Yeah, like I say, those first 2 rounds were quite surprising. You know, I think it was the later part of round 2 where you went back to your normal style, you know, that come forward, all pressure style, the one that the fans love to see. That's when I knew it definitely was you in there and not a lookalike. When you went into that mode, you started to clearly dominate the fight, in my opinion. Those body shots, though, Brandon, they were certainly key in the end.
No, yes, of course. You know, it was that part of the game plan. You know, we were supposed to actually box him for 4 rounds. But like I said, really quickly, I saw a little chink in the armor right away, right off the bat, and I knew that I just had to apply a little bit more pressure. And you know, I had to apply the pressure early on due to the fact that it was so effective. And not only that, I mean, I have stamina for days, so I knew that I knew if I pressed him a little bit earlier than what we usually had planned. I mean, he was done, like I said, by round 3, 4. He had no legs, no nothing, and like I said, I went into my old style really quickly because I saw that it was really effective against him. And yeah, I mean, I just put the pressure and I wasn't letting up.
Yeah, I mean, no one beats you on the inside. And you say there that you felt, you know, he pretty much faded after a couple of rounds. I thought he had a decent start to the first couple of rounds. I think his footwork was quite effective. Someone, though, who didn't think you dominated those early rounds was the unofficial broadcast judge, Steve Farhood. Have you watched it back or seen his scorecard at all?
Yeah, I think
I believe he had it 4-2 to Magsayo after 6 rounds, which was very controversial.
Yeah. I mean, I know the scorecards were very controversial, but I mean, I just felt like I did what I had to do. You know, I felt like Magsayo threw the best at me, and I handled it. And I feel like he threw his best shots against me, and it didn't faze me. And I felt like when I threw my best shots at him, he was holding on for dear life, falling on the canvas. Like I said, he had no air, he had no stamina, he had no conditioning. His legs were gone. He was absolutely exhausted. So I guess the judges saw that, and I know they took away the points. And also, not only that, but I mean, he was falling to the canvas like by himself. So that's already like, at least 2 of them should have been kind of as a knockdown. But I'm happy with the decision, and I'm happy the way things turned out, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I think the judges in the end, the official judges, got it right. I think you were a clear winner. Just that, Steve Farhood, obviously, with his scorecard in the commentary, I thought was quite questionable. But anyways, let's leave that there. Do you think that the fight could potentially be one of the fights of the year? I know we're only in March, but do you think it will still be one of the best fights?
Now that I look back at it, maybe if Mark Magsayo would have given me more of a fight, I felt like it would have been more of a fight of the year candidate. But I feel like in the later part of the fight, he was just holding on and you know, making it a really rough, you know, he was just hanging on, holding on, and making it that type of fight. So I feel like he took the excitement away from the fight by holding and making it making it like that. So I would say yes in a way, but at the same time, I know what a fight of the year looks like, and I would like to say like maybe he would have gave me more action. Maybe it would have been a contender, but I want to say it's a 50-50.
You say there that, maybe if he gave you more action, that leads me into my next question perfectly. I wanted to ask, which of these two fights did you find harder yourself? The fight against Magsayo or the fight against Stephen Fulton?
Oh, for sure, the Stephen Fulton fight. I felt like Mark Magsayo, like I said, he ran out of gas early on, and he fought my fight, and I felt like with Stephen Fulton, it was I had to chase him a little bit more. Fulton had more legs to run, so I felt like I had to press Stephen Fulton more and use more of my abilities to tag him up. Not only that, but I mean, it was at 122, which was I was a little bit weaker, a little bit more, not that complete. So I can't really make the comparison, but I would like to say that the Stephen Fulton one was definitely the tougher one.
And speaking of Stephen Fulton, he steps in with Naoya Inoue May the 7th in Japan. How do you see that one going, Brandon?
Oh, that's going to be a great fight. That one can be fight of the year. That one is going to be definitely one for the books for them. It's going to be an exciting fight, as a boxing fan as well as a boxer that does this. This is really good for boxing. So, yeah, I mean, it just. I want to say the winner goes to the one that prepares the best. Inoue, like I said, Inoue is a very special fighter, unique, but Stephen Fulton is also a very special, unique fighter. So I just feel like it's just whoever makes the first mistake and whoever prepares themselves the best for the fight will be, I feel like, the winner. But other than that, I mean, you can't take away from nothing. Both of these guys, these guys have a great resume. Their fighting styles are unique, and it's going to be a good matchup.
So you feel like the fight is pretty much a 50-50. Do you necessarily want one guy to win the fight, or do you not really care?
I mean, I don't really care. But at the same time,
I'm just thinking if Fulton wins, that might, that controversial loss to him looks a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really care about that because I know along the line, I know with time, we're gonna have that rematch. So I know right now, I'm at 126. He has an objective at 122, and that's to win the belts. So yeah, I mean, I am rooting for Fulton to come out victorious and for him to bring the belts back to America. And yeah, I mean, it not only for my sake, but just for him in general and for USA, it'll be really good for boxing. Not only that, but maybe we can get a fight at 126 and make it bigger and better than any of his fights.
Yeah, for sure. And you're now the interim WBC champion. The full champion, of course, is Rey Vargas. Is that the plan moving forward in the kind of not too distant future?
Hopefully. I mean, hopefully. I'm the type of person that I'll get in there with anyone. I want the best of the best. I've always said this from the start of my career that I wanted to fight the best of the best, and I want to make these fights exciting. I love fighting, and not only that, but I love to give fans a great show and give the fans the tickets worth, and make sure the fans leave home with a satisfaction that they're not going to get it with a lot of other boxers. I'm an all-action fighter. I come forward and I fight. I fight my butt off every time I get in the ring, and everyone knows that whenever I'm going to fight is going to be a fight of the year candidate because they know what I bring to the table.
Yeah, 100%. I can't disagree with that at all. Obviously, you were on the undercard of Vargas's fight against Magsayo when he beat Magsayo, but he recently lost his O to O'Shaquie Foster, Rey Vargas. How do you think that fight would go with you two? I know you're going to say probably another fight of the year contender. It always is when Brandon Figueroa is involved.
No, yes, of course. And yeah, it's another fight where I'm going to have to be pressing Rey Vargas since he's a boxer, lanky fighter. So I definitely just have to press him the whole fight and do what I do best, which is apply pressure and keep keep throwing a lot of punches. You know, that's what I do best, and I feel like it'll be very effective against Vargas.
And obviously, during your fight, you suffered a cut, I believe, maybe on both eyes during the fight. How are they healing up, Brandon?
Oh yeah, they already healed up. You know, it was mostly like little scraps from the head, him rubbing his head on my face. I mean, I'm a really white complected person, so like any little thing will mark my face up. So yeah, no, they already healed up by now. They healed up, I want to say, like in 5 days after my fight, so they weren't really deep cuts.
Okay, fantastic news. And when would you like to be out next, ideally, Brandon, if it were up to you?
I mean, I don't really care. I mean, I'm right now. I've been at the gym. I was at the gym Monday. You know, I fought Saturday. I was already at the gym Monday. And I'll be at the gym after this interview. So you know, I'm maintaining myself. I'm busy with it, and I'm just excited for the next fight. I mean, I'll be ready by summer, midsummer, after summer. You know, it doesn't matter. Whatever Rey Vargas wants to do, or if there's another fight lined up for me, you know, I'm just more than happy to fight, and I'll be ready for whatever.
We cannot wait to see you fight again. And just finally, before we let you go, Brandon, if you've got any closing words to the listeners, like I say, you've been on this show many times before. It's always a pleasure having you on. The listeners love you. Do you have a closing message for them?
Oh, yes, sir. You know, just a big shout out to all my UK fans. You guys are amazing. And it always feels nice to get love and support from literally across the ocean. And hopefully one day I would love to visit UK and you know, have a tour over there. Maybe have a fight over there one day. And I know you mentioned it. So hopefully in the future I would love to have a trip over there to the UK. And I know it would be amazing. It's crazy how you know, how I have a lot of fans all around the world, and you know, I'm just a small kid from a small town, and to me it means a lot. So I'm just very grateful. So thank you for this interview, and thank you for all my UK fans. Love you guys. Thank you.
Yeah, you deserve it all, my friend. You bring the action every time. Listen, Brandon, it's always a pleasure speaking with you. Like I say, congrats again on that great win, and we'll speak again real soon, I'm sure.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much for the interview. Appreciate it.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, of course, the news part of the show. We're going to start here with this one. It's official, May 20th in Dublin. Katie Taylor against Chantel Cameron. It is unbelievable. This is literally a women's super fight. I cannot wait to see it. So happy for Chantel Cameron, who of course has been on the show a couple of times in the past. She genuinely never thought Katie Taylor would want to fight her, and you know, it's fantastic that this is happening. It really is such an unbelievable fight. I'm such a fan of this fight happening, obviously for Katie Taylor as well, a homecoming for her, and yeah, her chance to become a two-way undisputed world champion. She obviously moves to 140 here against Chantel Cameron. Yeah, I just cannot wait. It's a brilliant fight. Not long really as well. It's not too far to wait now. Just what are we, about 8 weeks away, something like that, give or take. On the undercard, we will see as well Terry Harper defending her WBA world title against former pound-for-pound #1 Cecilia Brackhouse. That's going to be, like I say, on the undercard, obviously May 20th, Saturday in Dublin, and it's going to be live on DAZN. It's just a fantastic fight again. Yeah, I'm happy for Terry Harper, really, because, you know, I think she needed a big name, and Brackhouse is a really tough fight, but, you know, Terry Harper looks a completely different fighter, much fitter, much stronger, up at 154. Crazy to think that she made the previous weight. I think she was, like a super featherweight. She's moved up so many pounds, and, yeah, great stuff as well for her. In other news as well, Canelo Alvarez defends his undisputed titles against the UK's John Ryder, friend of the show, of course, John Ryder. It's going to be May the 6th, that one, in Mexico, so a homecoming there for John Ryder. Sorry, not for John Ryder, for Canelo. John Ryder, look, you know, obviously massively up against it. There's no question at all. He's a huge underdog. But one thing is for sure, no one can begrudge John Ryder this opportunity. You know, if anyone deserves it, it's him. He's had tough fight after tough fight after tough fight. You know, obviously been on the receiving end of some dodgy scorecards and stuff like that, and I'm just so pleased for him that he's got this opportunity. I don't think he's got much of a chance, I'm going to be honest with you, because, you know, Canelo is just, I mean, this is one of the best fighters in the world, and John Ryder, although he's on this unbelievable run, and he's probably the, you know, the most improved British fighter in recent times, it's still, you know, a mammoth step up in competition. This is just almost unimaginable for him to win this fight. But listen, all the best to him. We've seen strange things happen in boxing. I'd love to see him do it. Honestly, I think I would jump around my living room. I don't even know. I'd probably go head first through my wall. I'd be so pleased for him. And in other news, we've got the fact that Joshua Buatsi's left Matchroom signed a promotional contract with Boxer and Sky Sports. He's going to be fighting on May the 6th as well in Birmingham. I don't know if they have an opponent for him just yet, but he's happy to be on Sky, you know, and leaving the zone. So all the best to JB. Yeah, that's about it for the news. Moving on now to the preview part of the show. We're going to start with a card that takes place tonight at the Place Bell in Laval, Quebec, Canada. Over here, we're going to see on the undercard Jessica Kamara, 10-3. This is over 10 2-minute rounds. She gets in with Carla Zamora, who's 9-9 with a draw. Just a small fight really to mention there for Jessica Kamara, who I think beat Callie Reese and should have been a world champion but got jobbed on the cards. And the main event, by the way, friend of the show Jean Pascal, 36-6 with a draw, gets in with Michael Effert, who is 11-1. It's over 12 rounds. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is some kind of eliminator. God knows how, you know, he's a friend of the show, but God knows how Jean Pascal has managed to get himself an eliminator, or it could even be a final eliminator if I'm not mistaken. And the guy gets in with, like I say, 11-1, German fighter. You know, he's not very good. From what I've heard, this is like, you know, a very, 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 very easy win for Jean Pascal. So all the best to him anyway. Yeah, that's it for that one. Moving now to this card. It takes place on Friday at the Town Hall in Dudley, West Midlands, United Kingdom. It's not going to be televised, but decent fight here for the vacant British super flyweight title. We've got Ayaz Ahmed, who is 10-2 with 2 draws. Listeners will know that he had 2 or 3 fights with Casey Kademi, friend of the show. Ahmed is, you know, relentless pressure but not a puncher at all. He gets in with Marcel Braithwaite, who's 14-3. Again, not a puncher at all. You'd expect this one to go the distance. You know, I'd be shocked if either guy was able to get a knockout, but Braithwaite is the favourite, and I understand why. You know, I've only ever seen Ahmed fight Casey Kademi, and like I say, I think I've seen him do 36 rounds. Kademi's so much more skilled, but Ahmed, you know, can put the pressure on, and Kademi couldn't really keep him off in terms of, you know, he didn't have enough power for Ahmed to respect him, and he didn't have enough strength. I think Braithwaite, though, is, you know, a stronger, bigger guy, and I think he'll be able to deal with Ahmed's pressure. You know, we've seen him beat Thomas Essomba, so I would say that Braithwaite will probably win this one on points. That's my pick anyway. But all the best to both guys. Don't really care who wins. Moving out now to Italy. Over here, this one takes place in Roma, Lazio. We have friend of the show, former not world title challenger. Anyway, whatever. He boxed Virgil Ortiz Jr. We've got Michael McKinson, 23-1. It's over 8 rounds here against Sergio Dos Santos Carvalho, who is 13-1. Michael McKinson, I know for a fact, didn't want to fight anyone with, you know, a bad record or anything like that. He just wanted to fight, and that's it. He wanted to fight someone. He wanted to keep active. He didn't care where the fight would be. So we had him on, I think, probably about a month, maybe 6 weeks ago, and he spoke about his fight. It was going to be, you know, in March in Italy. He didn't have an opponent, but he didn't want anyone with, like I say, a terrible record. So he's opted for this guy who's 13-1. I can't tell you too much about the guy because I don't know it, but all the best to Mikey McKinson. I like his style, I like his attitude, and he'll certainly be back. He's obviously still world ranked, and a top quality fighter. Moving out now though, Eddie, I'm going to come to you here. We're going to Dubai at the Agenda Arena. I'm going to come to you for the main event, but the chief support, John O'Carroll, 23-2 with a draw, gets in with Miguel Mariaga, 30-6. That's over 10 rounds there. Really interesting fight, actually, this one. Carroll is the big favourite with the bookies, but, I, again, don't think he's been too serious in his recent performances. He kind of has had the same sort of career in recent times as someone like a Badu Jack. I think they've both moved to Dubai, and they've both been fighting in Dubai on these kind of really strange cards against no one of note, really. His last proper fight was in the States against Andy Vences. That was a year and a half ago. It was a cracking fight, obviously, but yeah, he hasn't been overly impressive. I think the performance of his career was probably that loss to Tevin Farmer, where he pushed Tevin Farmer quite close, but still lost. And beat Scott Quigg, didn't he? That was definitely the performance of his career. He was able to knock him out. But Miguel Mariaga, like I say, a big puncher, and you've pretty much got to be switched on for the entirety of the fight, and it's a 10-rounder here, and John O'Carroll obviously isn't a puncher at all, and I'm just wondering if Miguel Mariaga could maybe put it on John O'Carroll, and I don't know if he could stop him, but I don't think it's impossible. I think it's a really interesting fight. I gave Mariaga quite a big shot against Michael Conlan in his last fight. Obviously, he was the one who was on the deck though in rounds 7, 8, and 9. I think if my memory serves me right, I'm sure he did hurt Conlan late at some point. Could be making that up, but yeah, he's not fantastic really. I'm giving it too much time here, but he's not fantastic, the Colombian, 36 years of age, but he can bang, like I say, 30-6 with 26 KOs. It could be interesting though. We'll have to see. John O'Carroll sometimes, in a really good fight. So it'd be interesting to see how it unfolds. But the main event, Eddie, it's such a weird one. I cannot believe it. I think you know who I'm talking about here. Jarrell Big Baby Miller, 25-0 with a draw, gets in with Lucas Big Daddy Brown, 31-3. Big Baby against Big Daddy.
Yo, stop making me laugh, Joe. Big Baby, Big Daddy. Yeah, it's a hell of a fight with the two bigs. One the baby, one the daddy. We're gonna see who's the daddy on the night of the fight, though. That's for sure. You like that, right? But it's obviously Big Daddy. I hate to say that out loud. I'm actually in the store. I don't want nobody hearing me say that. But anyway, no. But in the past, maybe I would have given him more of a chance. Because he's a big puncher. He was strong. He was tough, and you don't really have to go looking for Jarrell Miller. He's coming at you. He's 300 pounds most of the time. I don't know what he's going to come in for this fight, but. But at this time he's a little older.
I think you're being very generous. He was 328 last time out, Eddie.
Oh damn, my fault. I was definitely
throw some respect on his weight, or should I say, throw some respect on his plate.
Yo, that was good, Joe. I'll give you that one. That was pretty damn good. Throw some respect, not on his name, but on his plate, or not on his weight, but his plate. Hell yeah. But no. But anyway, it's just, I think it's a heavy task to ask him to catch lightning in a bottle twice. I think the fight with Junior Fa is a good situation. I'm not saying that he couldn't do that again. I mean, he's a puncher. He's tough. He's gonna fight. He's gonna give you the best he can at this point. Him being 43 or 44 years of age. But I just think with Big Baby. He's big, he's strong, he can punch, he's pretty decently skilled, you know what I mean? And he's 300 and some pounds too. It's going to be, you heard me say something. And that weight does have an effect, especially if he's going to keep being able to pressure you. Now, like we call him Big Daddy, but he's a big guy too. But I don't know if he's going to come in anywhere close to that weight. And I don't know if he's ever had to really deal with being on the back foot in a fight or having somebody pressing him and making him have to fight at a pace he's not used to. But in a fight like this with Big Baby is going to be something he would have to do. Either that or he'd have to catch him and get him out of there. I'm not saying it's impossible,
it's definitely possible with his punching power, but it's just not probable. You know what I mean? Most likely, I see Big Baby, outlasting him, getting him to maybe, I don't even know if it will, but possibly getting him to the middle rounds and end up stopping him. But it'll be interesting. The Big Daddy versus Big Baby thing is interesting too. So you just know this, it's not going to go the distance. I know that for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. There's no way in the world it's going 10 rounds. Both guys are friends of the show. I mean, I get on very well with Lucas Brown. I think I've only had Big Baby on the show maybe once. But yeah, I mean, Big Daddy Brown, he's just going to come to bomb in the first round. We know there's no surprises with him now. We've seen it time and time again. He's coming to get the knockout early. He's not going to have the gas tank late. Jarrell Big Baby Miller has been a totally different fighter since he come off his ban. He's come back with obviously 2 wins since then. He's weighed in at 341 pounds and 328 pounds. God knows what he's going to come in this fight, like you touched on. But yeah, I wasn't impressed with his comeback fight. Went the distance with Ariel Bracamonte, who, people will remember got knocked out in 2 rounds by Fraser Clark, got knocked out by Dave Allen, retired on his stall. That was back in 2018. But without going too far away from it, he should have knocked out Bracamonte, and he didn't. He actually went 10 rounds with Bracamonte in Argentina. But, he was rusty. He was coming off, like I say, almost 4 years out the ring. And his last fight was able to knock out a guy who wasn't very good called Derek Cardenas, who's, currently 8-10, been knocked out 7 times. But, got him out there in 4 rounds. There's not too much to read into. All I will say is, like I say, it's not going to go the distance. I think Lucas Brown has a chance. I really do. I think, I wouldn't be surprised if Lucas Brown actually knocked him out in a round or 2. I think Junior Farr is probably a better fighter at this point, or was a better fighter before he lost to Lucas Brown. Compared to the version of Big Baby that we're seeing currently. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a first or second round knockout for Lucas Brown, which of course would be crazy. It's not like Miller's shown a bad chin in the past. I think he's got a good chin. He's generally tough and he can punch as well. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure we're even going to see the second half of the fight. I think we're going to see a stoppage and we're going to see it early. It could go either way. It's pretty much like that with all Lucas Brown fights. He usually gets the win. And we always talk about him like he's completely finished. Obviously, you touched on his age, 43 years of age, but still only lost just 3 fights out of 34. He got beat by Dave Allen, by Dillian White, and by Paul Gallen, which the Gallen one didn't look good. But other than that, it's always worked for him. He turns up, and he bangs people out. That's what he does. I've had him on the show before. He said, I need to stop convincing myself I'm a boxer. I'm not a boxer. I need to stop trying to box. I'm just here to bang people out. And I believe that is the right way for him to go. And I think it's going to be interesting, those tactics against Jarrell Big Baby Miller, because here we're going to see him come for Miller very early. And Miller as well, like you said, can punch, can be quite skillful. We haven't seen many skills recently from him, so I think it's intriguing, but I'm not entirely sure we get past 5 rounds. I think we could see a very early finish, could be round 1, 2 or 3, but honestly nothing would shock me here, but one of them is going, that's for sure. Anyway, moving on now to the Utilita Arena in Newcastle, Tyne Wear. This is going to be on DAZN. On the undercard, we have Callum French, 3-0, getting in with tough journeyman Jordan Ellison, 14-44 with 3 draws. That's over 8 rounds. You'd expect Callum French to win that one on points, really. We've got Pat McCormack, 3-0, getting in with Dario Sochi, who is 15-7 with 2 draws. I think he got stopped by Troy Williamson, maybe in his only knockout defeat, I think, that guy there. But anyway, Pat McCormack, 3-0, 2 KOs. Be interesting to see what happens here. It's over 8. We've got Solomon Dakers, who I'm not even going to go in on this time. I've given him so much constructive criticism in the past. But yeah, he bores me to death. He's in a 10-rounder here. He's 5-0 with 1 KO. He gets in with the undefeated Robert Ismay, who's 11-0. It's for the vacant English heavyweight title. You'd expect Dacres to win the fight. You know, he's got skills. He's got, you know, an amateur pedigree and stuff like that. And I haven't heard of this Ismay guy. I think he's like mid-30s and hasn't really boxed anyone. So yeah, Sullivan Dacres should win the fight, but will he win by stoppage? Probably not. Will he win on points over 10 rounds in a complete snooze fest? Probably yes. So not looking forward to that fight, but hopefully he can prove me wrong and it will actually be exciting. But he has not been in a decent fight, Sullivan Dacres. Every single fight is so boring, and for a heavyweight, you cannot afford to be boring as a heavyweight. So that's that. Moving up the card once again, Hopey Price looking to move to 10-0. He's 9-0. He gets in with Thomas Masson, who is 20-5 with a draw. Only been stopped the one time in those 5 losses to Daigo Higa. I think back in 2017 when Daigo Higa was on that heck of a run where he was knocking everyone out. So I'm expecting Hopey Price to win this one on points. It's over 10 rounds for the vacant WBA Continental Super-Bantamweight title. I quite like Hopey Price, really. I think he's got an interesting future. So it's a good fight for him here against Thomas Masson, and should be able to win this one on points, really. And the main event is quite interesting. Cyrus Patterson, who is 5-0, it's for the vacant WBA International Welterweight title. He steps in with Chris Jenkins, 23-6 with 3 draws. Yeah, I mean, it's a big step up for Cyrus Patterson. You know, he hasn't boxed anyone near this level at all. But the only problem is he getting Chris Jenkins at the right time? Again, Chris Jenkins is another guy who I think they could have probably got more from his career than what he ended up getting, because I think he's a good fighter, skillful fighter and the rest of it, but he's just had such bad luck, whether it be cuts, whether it be poor scorecards. He's just never really had the luck of the green, and he's in bad form. He's lost 3 of his last 4 fights. I mean, lost to Eko Esserman, got stopped late in that one, got banged out in 4 rounds by Florian Marku, and then most recently he lost to Tyrone McKenna, even though that was highly disputed and most people thought he nicked it. So I guess that's not too bad of a last performance, you know. If they say that saying, you're only as good as your last fight, I think he was quite good in his last fight against Tyrone McKenna, but Tyrone McKenna completely cannot punch. So, you know, I don't know. Cyrus Patterson, I don't know even if he's much of a banger, because the people that he's banged out are just nobodies. So it's an interesting fight, this one, honestly. I could see Patterson getting the knockout. I could see him winning on points. I could see Jenkins winning on points. I don't think I can see Jenkins stopping him. But anyways, it's interesting, really, but it's a hard one to predict. So that is that for that one. Moving out now to the final card to mention. It takes place at the Walter Pyramid, or as the Americans would say, the Walter Pyramid. Not to confuse it with the transparent drink that we consume. The Walter Pyramid in Long Beach, California, which I'm sure no one from there says it like that. But anyway, it's going down on DAZN. We have friend of the show, Joseph Jojo Diaz, 32-3 with a draw on the card. He gets in with Mercito Gesta, who I've seen before. I think the Filipino fighter. I can't remember who he boxed. I've seen him. I think it was Linares. Yeah, it was Linares, and I think that was a good fight, if I'm not mistaken. I remember that was an old Box Nation show, man. Wow. Yeah, I remember seeing him fight Linares. Something tells me that it was quite a good fight. It was in Inglewood. I can't remember the fight exactly, but I know he fought him, and something tells me it was a good one. But anyways, he gets in with Jojo Diaz. Jojo Diaz should have too much for him, really, let's be honest. I think it's a nice and easy comeback fight for Diaz after losing last time out to William Zepeda, and then the time before that to Devin Haney. But yeah, I mean, I'd probably say Diaz to win on points. You know, that's probably how it's gonna go. But I can't see him having any problems, really, with Gesta, and it wouldn't surprise me if he did get him out of there, so we'll have to wait and see. But all the best to Jojo, who, again, has had some out-of-the-ring issues. I think I'm pretty sure I read that he got arrested for child neglect. I hope I'm not getting that wrong, and if I am getting it wrong, I'm certainly going to have to edit that out before I put this podcast out. But I'm sure he got arrested for child neglect, which you know, we don't know the ins and outs, but obviously it's not a good look there, especially when you've got a fight penciled in for a few weeks' time, and that was the case. And the main event, I'm going to come to you, Eddie. We've got Gilberto Ramirez, 44-1 of Mexico. Last time out, lost, of course, to Dimitri Bivol. Some people thought he would upset the odds and beat Bivol. I didn't think so. He lost quite handily in the end on points, went 12 rounds. He's been at the weight now long enough. It's not like he moved up and fought Bivol immediately in his first fight at 175. If you remember, he hung around at 175 for quite a long time before he decided to say, okay, I want my shot now. But yeah, anyway, gets in with Gabe Rosado, Eddie. 26-16 with a draw. Gabe Rosado up at light heavyweight here against someone who we know rehydrates to about 200 and God knows how many pounds. This is another mad fight for Gabe, who is coming off 3 losses on points in a row now.
Yeah, man. He has a habit of getting in tough fights, huh? It's unfortunate for him, but at the same time, it's a good thing for him. I mean, he wants these fights, obviously, the opportunity to, with one of he gets one win here. He beats a guy like this, he's backing heavy into the conversation. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of upside, a lot of gain. Then there's also obviously the money, aspect that, it's there that he can, cash in on. But it's just these fights are tough, man. They're with the elites of the elite. And, at this stage in Gabe's career, where a lot of people were, there's been whispers of like, it might be time for him to, step aside. For him to still be trying to compete at this level and still actually being able to do it, I don't know how this one's going to go. But in the past, he's been, better than, and at times being better than expected. But, with a guy like this, in the prime of his career, he had a tough loss. This is something that he wants to bounce back in a way that, puts people on notice and say, hey, I'm still here. I'm still a serious contender for these titles. And, he wants to prove that he's here to stay. With Gabe, it's like now he's moving up to 175 with a guy who, like you said, possibly could be a heavyweight on fight night. I don't know, man. Gabe's a big kid too. He's not a small guy. He's about 6 foot, I think 6 foot or so, 5'11", 6 foot. So he's not small. It's just, these guys are large. You know what I mean? They're light heavies, but could be, possibly even go to cruiser because of their height. You know what I mean? I don't know about their bone density and all of that, but these are big guys. So, being that he's a little far in the game, and on top of that, he's fighting these young and up and coming, some of guys who already actually have arrived, being champions or full world champions at this stage in his career is tough. But like I said, it only takes one, and I don't see it happening in here. I just hope he doesn't get stopped and doesn't look bad. But it can. It only takes one shot, and all of a sudden he's back.
Yeah, I mean, I don't give him a chance at all in this fight, like, at all. This is like, if the odds were good, I'd put every penny to my name on Ramirez winning this fight. I don't give him a chance in hell. Obviously, I don't think he should be up at 175. He's fighting a big guy. Weight classes aside, this is, like I say, a guy that rehydrates massively. It's his first fight of the way. He's in terrible form, losing 3 in a row. And it just comes down for me to whether or not he's going to get stopped or not. I think if he goes the distance, there's a moral victory in there. If he gets stopped, then it will be the first time he's been stopped in over 8 years since he got stopped back in 2014 to David Lemieux. But yeah, I mean, you look at his recent form, obviously Ramirez coming off a loss as well, lost to Bivol, but you look at Gabe's recent form, losing to Jaime Munguia, he completely, was dominated that fight there. Then he lost to Shane Mosley Jr., don't forget, and then he lost to Ali Akhmedov as well. Like I say, he's gone the distance on every occasion there. but this is a big jump from the likes of Shane Mosley Jr. and Ali Akhmedov. So yeah, and like I say, at the weight class above, there's not a chance in hell that he wins this fight for me. But I don't want to see him get iced either. I don't want to see him I don't like that at all. I think Gabe seems like quite a cool character, and yeah, I don't want to see him sprawled out on the floor in a heap, fighting on for too long. I think he does need to think about retirement, but he's a stubborn character as well, which we know. But anyway, that brings the preview part to a close. In part 1, we did the review part. Then we spoke to our special guest, the former unified Super-Bantamweight world champion, Mr. Brandon Figueroa. Then in part 2, we did the news. And then I've just wrapped up the preview part. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this wraps up episode 387 of the BoxHard Podcast. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A huge thank you to this week's special guest, the former unified Super-Bantamweight world champion, Mr. Brandon Figueroa. The biggest thanks of all, though, goes out to you, the listeners. There was one mistake that I made earlier on in the podcast, and it's that I completely forgot to go over the fight that we saw obviously headline in France on the weekend. I spoke about all of the undercard fights, but we didn't touch on the main event. Obviously, we saw Carlos Takam upset the odds massively against Tony Yoka. Yoka now 11-2, Takam now 40-7 with a draw. Amazing stuff for Carlos Takam. I mean, what a way to get win number 40 for him. It's a big number, of course. But on last week's show, I literally touched on this. I did say Carlos Takam, I think, is going to be bang up for this. I think he was well motivated to get in with Yoka, who, as I said on last week's show, I said it all. He was coming off a loss. Takam was in decent form. Obviously, should have got the decision against Makhmudov last time out. And yeah, he was going to be back at home and bang up for the fight. And I said it's worth a little bet at 18-1 for Carlos Takam on points, and that is what ended up happening. I'm hoping that at least a couple of you got on that. But yeah, split decision for Carlos Takam. Should have been unanimous. And yeah, it was of course over 10 rounds, so magnificent stuff there for Carlos Takam. I don't have Eddie with me at the minute, so we're not going to discuss it too much, but brilliant for him. He was able to obviously outwork Yoka, and yeah, it was just a brilliant performance from Carlos Takam at his age. It's super impressive. But anyway, I won't go in on the fight any further. What I do want to say once again is just thanks for listening to you all. Please, if you do have a spare couple of minutes, please leave us a review on iTunes. They really do mean a lot to us, those reviews. And if you do want to improve your below the waist hygiene, visit manscaped.com and use that promo code BoxHard for 20% off plus free shipping. But that's about everything now from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we shall see you all again next week.